Beautiful people, hello. I'd like to share with you a deck that I purchased from my favorite secondhand bookstore. They, from time to time, will get a deck or two in. It's a rare thing and you just have to be lucky, but they're so reasonably priced. This was $10. And I have had this for at least 2 months. It's been sitting there on my shelf because I realised it was a bit of a system in itself, which is fascinating to me. I like to learn. However, I was concentrating on other decks and thought I don't want to just kind of skim the surface. Otherwise, I'm likely just to put it back on the shelf and never go back to it. So just the other day, I decided to read the book again and really take it in this time and do a spread also, just to see how it works for me. So here it is, the ancient Egyptian oracle, the cards of Ra-Ma'at, which I understand is the way to pronounce it, and if it's wrong, I do apologise. Now, this is by Norman Plaskett, and I cannot find a date in the book as to when this was printed, which is really bizarre. But my guess is 90s, because the booklet goes on to explain that there's a great cycle of time that's coming to an end. So therefore a new cycle of existence is about to begin. This is all uncharted territory for humankind. And this deck relates to that transition. And so, I'm thinking, new millennium. That's about all I can say because I'm not sure. I still find it very bizarre. Anyhow, so the book is actually pretty good in that it does go in and explain in the beginning a little bit about ancient Egypt. And in a nutshell, he goes on to say that Egyptians had not just like sun worship, as in, the sun god Ra. There was more to their religion than that. They also had stellar, what did he call it? Stellar wisdom. And that, they used to obviously watch the night sky, and, examples like the god Osiris was identified with the constellation of Orion, and Isis was the constellation of Sirius. And so he just wanted to kind of make that clear that, that there were, I think, over 500 gods and goddesses because they watched the night sky in its intricacies also. And he said they reasoned that the sun god Ra went through 21 different areas of experience as he travelled across the sky each day. So he'd be born every morning and he died each night in preparation for rebirth. And when he says 21 different areas of experience, he doesn't actually in this book clarify why it was 21, but I guess, there's only so much he was able to share in this guidebook. But I guess it's just through their observation. There were 21 different, what would be the word? Like the sun would kind of communicate or show itself in 21 different ways as it progressed across the sky. That's the only thing I could kind of come up with myself. But anyway, out of that, they called them pylons, 21 different pylons. And apparently there were advantages in, if you had knowledge of the 21 pylons, it was advantageous and it would stand you in good stead when it came time to enter the afterlife yourself. And apparently there are references to the pylons in the Book of the Dead. So when people were ready to pass over, I don't know how it works, but clearly if they had this, whether it was just they had this own, this knowledge, this special knowledge that they held, in their memory that they believed would take them, or did you have to approach somebody and quote these things? I don't really know. But what was interesting, they said, there was a little extra clause, and that is, if your soul was to journey to heaven, it had to be, there was a little test. And if your heart they'd put your heart on a scale along with the feather, and if the heart weighed more than the feather, well, you got a problem. And what he says in this book is that he believes in our modern world, it's actually the soul's conscience that we are talking about. So if you upon, like, you're approaching death, if the test before you could enter the kingdom of heaven was if your conscience was lighter than a feather, that indicated that you did follow the teachings of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice, throughout your life. And if you did, well, all would be well, and you have the rite of passage through to the afterlife. And I thought that was really quite fascinating. Okay, so these cards are designed to anticipate future trends in our lives without being, strictly predictive, because he does put a reasonable amount of focus on free will, which I really appreciate. He says here that actions in the here and now affect our future, and we need to keep in mind that there are outside influences and pressures from the environment, and, obviously we respond to them. And in this deck, it's a set of cards called the pylons that I just mentioned, the blue cards, that actually represent the outside influences. And it kind of reminds me of astrology, which is why I was really drawn to this deck, because astrology is much the same in that free will is certainly taken on board, as well as destiny and fate, but really it's about the surrounding energies. That's what the planets represent, and what you do with that energy is up to you. How you channel it, and how you address it, and where you send that energy is also up to you. Your free will certainly does play a part. So what I'll do is I'll show you the cards as we go, but just before I do, you can see there's quite a reasonable amount of information. There's a few, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this properly. That's the very beginning, and there's quite a bit of information. It's just sort of actually about ancient Egypt itself. There's a few images here. And to go on to the next page, as he discusses, ancient Egypt, it's great that there are a few images for you to gaze over, how to use this book, and then we move on. Now, I will say, he does make a point of saying that this is like a loose instruction manual, in that there is no kind of specific system that you have to lock into, even though the spread that's offered is 13 cards and it's very in-depth. There's no law against doing your own thing. So he says also the idea isn't simply about learning every single card by rote, one by one, in numerological order, 1 through 21 for the pylons, etc. But of course, encourages you to read the book, understand what they mean, but then use your intuition. Like, he highly recommends that you use your intuition as you get to know the deck further along. So you can see here how much information. We get about a half a page per pylon. So what are the pylons? The pylon cards are the 21 different areas of life, the environment that surrounds us. And this again is based on the sun god Ra and the different faces, if you like, that he would show the people from his birth in the morning right through to his death in the evening. Now, you'll notice here that at the top there is the scarab beetle, and this goes on for the first 10 cards, this area here. I don't know why they change as the cards move from 11 on. I really can't find anything in the book unless I've missed it. I'll have to go back through it again, but you can see at the top of this, it's different. And I would love to understand why. Is it because there are 10 primary pylons, like 10 primary areas of life that they adhere to environmentally, or what? I really don't know. So it's a shame if it isn't in the book. It's a shame he didn't go on to explain what that is. He didn't even say what, that the fact that they came up with 21 different pylons, what were they? I'd just be interested to know whether, well, he mentions that, the pylons are actually mentioned in the Book of the Dead, so maybe you have to read up, yourself in that regard. So again, the pylons represent outside influences and pressures from the environment, and the fact that we have to respond to them because that's life. They are there. But he does say that, you can choose, to stay in that environment or not. You can evaluate where you're at. You can go with the flow or you can oppose it. So that's what the pylons or the blue cards are all about. From there, we move on to the cubits. And you can see there. They are obviously the black cards, and the cubit is a measurement that they used in ancient Egypt, and it was actually the distance from the pharaoh's elbow to his middle finger. And then from there they went into smaller increments, which was divided in, I'm so sorry, I have a frog in my throat, clearly. Yes, from there they divided into increments 28 different parts, and they would call them the finger breadths. So that's what the black cards are about, and they basically describe your feelings, your strengths and weaknesses, and any kind of desires or hidden motives. So I'll show you the cards so you can get a bit of an idea. So that, whoa, nearly dropped them. They're quite shiny, by the way, and a little slippery. So there are 28 of those, as I mentioned, 28 parts. They call the cubit the, what did they call it? Royal cubit. That was the term that was used. And then this is just a depiction of the 28 finger breadths. So again, it's our feelings, our strengths, our weaknesses, any hidden motives, desires, and also our attitude towards the mundane. And, well, in astrology, things like the mundane are like, your day-to-day things, money, power, self-image, daily routines, sex, etc., etc. So he says much the same thing. So again, I do apologize for the glare. I hope you get a reasonable glimpse of these cards. Okay, so I think you get the idea there. From there, we go through to the white cards. These are the deities. And the deities are our personality types that surround us, and not only the personality, so that obviously it can be people around us, but it can also be how we actually react to them. So I like the fact that the cards, again, it reminds me of astrology, that where things are actually multi-layered, because planets mean different things depending on how you read the chart, what type of astrology you're doing. And, they mean different. The planets themselves don't have one meaning, they have many. So these, they call these the Ra Ma'at cards, or the deities. And so, yes, our attitudes, and they can make suggestions in the spread as to how we may adjust our thinking towards something if we're having a bit of a struggle. So I'll show you the cards themselves. Put them here. So here we go. I was going to read you all the names, but I don't think I need to kind of You'll recognize most of them. So these show, sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees, and these cards will come up to actually give you a message and try and dispel the fog, if you like, you know, clear the way. So you're standing there going, I can't figure this out. I've got no idea what's going on. And these come along to say, hey, this is what it is. Let's clear your vision. Let's, you know, brush away the fog, blow away the clouds. This is actually what's going on. And more or less assist you forward, depending on, you know, the question or the situation that you're at. So there we are. There are the deity cards, or deities. And last but certainly not least, where am I here? Oh, yes, we've got the eret cards. Now, the eret cards, I can't find them in the book. What have I done? No. Oh, fabulous. This is really well organized, isn't it? Here they are. So the eret cards actually relate to planets. Now, clearly this is like traditional astrology because there are 7 eret cards. And so they say that these have planetary links. But what I find interesting is they don't mention the planetary links in the explanation, which I think is weird because for me, I can, you know, put my own personal slant on things. I think I know what they are, but for somebody that's not familiar with astrology, I don't really see the point in saying that they have astrological links, or sorry, planetary links, when you don't explain what they are. But I'll tell you from my perspective. I'll just show you the cards first. Here they are. So there's only 7 of these. Eret 1. And so again, they indicate that what are these cards? I've got to think now. I'm trying to remember. Oh, that's right. Sorry. How could I forget? They indicate the area of life that the cards are referring to, which I found really interesting. So it's almost like in astrology, you know, every house represents a different area of life. Well, these cards are here to, show you the way. So it's more about showing you the way forward, describing the area of life in which, you know, all these other cards relate to, in order to, in order to help you move forward, not for predictive purposes. It's not about, they don't dictate any particular outcome. They're saying, well, this is where it's at. Okay, so that's how it helps you forward. And they synchronize the different sections of our life. So it's supposed to show like a holistic pattern, especially, you know, there's only 7. And if you get a few of them in your 13 card spread, well, it's pretty, it's saying to me that, you know, all of these things that are going on are affecting more than one area of life. Now, as far as the astrological or the planetary associations, just as an example, see, eret 1, things of a material nature. Well, that to me is Saturn. Number 2, expansive principles, obviously would be Jupiter. Then we have competition and aggression, number 3, which is Mars. Eret 4, passions. So that would be Venus. 5, communication would be Mercury. 6, memory of the subconscious. Oh, memory, going back in time. To me, that would be the moon. And of course, ego is the sun. That's my take on those particular cards. But again, if you look at it like, say, number 7, well, that's the 7th house of partnership. So again, I'm going to have to delve into these cards further and get to know them. But it does state that they are planetary links. So I'm thinking, you know, it's just card number 7. It doesn't mean it's about the 7th house. So I haven't studied all of these cards. I will be honest, there's quite a lot to get through, but I thought I'd at least share with you. So what I'll do, I'm going to do another, I'll put another video on of this spread that I did. I've already done the spread, so I'm kind of doing this, back to front, if you like, as far as recording. But I laid the cards out and I didn't want to, lose the flow. And I just went through, it's actually quite a lengthy discussion. I'll try and edit it, but it's close to an hour. But honestly, it was so fascinating. I really felt compelled to share some of my personal journey, just so you could see how this works. It really is a system within itself. And I love that. I'm so grateful that I just stumbled across this deck. So before I go on, I'll just show you briefly how this works. Now, I'll show you in the back. It also does provide you with certain combinations. And he said, look, these are tried and true, that over many years of, researching and experimenting with the decks, he found time and time again, I'm so sorry. He found time and time again that, this card along with this and this or this, really, time and time again, the combination turned out this way. So he went to the trouble of actually documenting these tried and true combinations that you can use. But of course, it's not every card because there's so many. But that's still a really good thing. My spread didn't actually include any of those combinations, so I'm yet to verify that, but I'm certainly looking forward to it. And then he gives a sample reading. So you can see this is how it looks. That's the spread itself. And just to show you, which there'll be more in the next video, this is what it looks like. So there's a lot of scope to use your intuition, by the way, because, wow, if I can find it, that'd be really handy. Where is it? Because there's a past, present, future. Oh, you know what? If I can't find it, I'll just show you on this one. Basically, I think there's a lot of room for experimentation and intuitive juices to flow, because he basically gives this line here as past, present, and future, and this line is the path that you're on now, you're following. So all of these other cards kind of, influence or, outside influences towards the read. So when I did my spread, honestly, I was just traveling on a wing and a prayer, really. It'll be interesting to see what you think. But also what I do like is he says basically, look for any patterns. What stands out to you? And, it might be this card because, just say if you only had one white card, you think, now that really stands out. Or there could be a few keywords with the black cards that means something to you at this very time. We'll concentrate on that and kind of expand from there. And if you're uncertain as to what it really pertains to, or you need further information, you draw 4 extra cards on that particular pair or on that particular card and add the meanings of those 4 cards to this spread. I did that and it made so much sense to me. It was really fascinating. So just quickly, I'll show you basically what he recommends you do. I've got it in my other spread, but you put all the cards together in their respective piles. And then if it's a client, obviously you give them this deck and they shuffle, a really decent shuffle as long as they see fit. And then obviously you're picking 13 cards. You put the first 6 down. And the 7th card is card number 1. You put the 6 cards underneath the pile and then you repeat. So you go through that process 13 times until you have your spread and you're ready to rock and roll from there. So just before I end this, I'll show you, I bought these also secondhand and don't really resonate a great deal with them. They're just a little oracle deck. I just thought it was fun to have something different. This is just a couple of the cards I'll show you. But the reason I bring this up is they're very, very straightforward. They don't muck around in their messages, but it's not a deck that I felt really compelled to, grab on a daily basis. But I'm thinking I might actually experiment with them and draw perhaps a card or two out of this deck and see how it works with Oh my God, am I showing you all of these upside down? I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just going to see how it works with this ancient Egyptian oracle. Might be a little bit of fun to just add, maybe like I don't know, a closing question, whatever it be. Anyway, we'll see what happens. They're kind of interesting, but again, I guess I haven't really given them a chance. Here is the backing of this deck, which is kind of nice. And I'm not sure who this is by. Is it a Lo Scarabeo? Yes, it's Lo Scarabeo, so you might be able to find them online. So there it is again. It's just called the Egyptian Oracle cards. So I'm going to come in just under 30 minutes. I'll end this video and I'll post you my spread on a separate one. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.